Warning, the Rise from the Ashes Recovery podcast contains adult subject matter and may be triggering to some individuals. This podcast is meant for entertainment purposes only and should never be substituted for any official clinical or medical advice. Enjoy the show. All right, Glenn, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, so let's start off with all the basic questions, right? How much time you got sober, favorite cup of tea for substances, kind of run down of the using history.
7.5 years at this point, be 8 in October, and my drug of choice was heroin.
Just heroin or heroin
It was heroin's the base,
Of course.
That was the I have to have it. Everything else was sort of superfluous to that. Like it was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's always funny, too, because no matter what, I know we were talking beforehand, my thing was methamphetamine. It's always funny because you have your base and it's like, if you go up, you have to come down. If you go down, you have to go back up. There's all the things in between.
Yeah, we're all amateur chemists. I think at one point I referred to us as like heroin addicts as amateur anesthesiologists.
Oh, yeah. I've always used the term chemical test pilot.
Yeah, there you go. That's a solid one. Yeah.
It's a science experiment. We're trying to figure this stuff out and get right, even, whatever it means.
Yeah, exactly. Never got there, but we were chasing it.
I think I got there once, and I think I chased it.
For the rest of the stuff. Yeah.
For the rest of the time, right? We're always trying to hit a mark. But anyway, give me a brief little rundown of the using career, because you said 7.5, so I'm sure that didn't come easy.
No, the 7.5 has been, like, as far as staying off of heroin has been pretty easy, actually, if I'm being honest. Like, since I got through that initial 6 months of being out in California. But like, since I've been back, it hasn't really been hard at all. I mean, sure, did I kick like when I was in the midst of those 10 years? Sure. But like, I never really tried as like maybe 3-4 days here and there, but that was about it. Maybe a dozen times over the course of 10 years.
Okay.
I'd say like once a year, maybe I'd try to, I'd be like, oh, I can't get, it was more of a, I can't get it. So maybe this is the time to get sober. Does that
makes perfect sense? Because, and I think it's living down here in South Orange County and Rehab Riviera. I think we're just kind of used to that. Hey, there's like a revolving door, right? Somebody starts going to treatment, and then there's this treatment cycle. Sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's a couple years, and people have those attempts. And it sounds like for you, like you had little moments where it's like you couldn't get it, and we had like a dry weekend, I guess you would say, but never any solid like I'm gonna do this.
No, not really. I mean, it depends on what you think of Suboxone, I guess. Like I might have gone a week with just using subs. Before
Gotcha.
I like that type of, but I don't think any of us really consider that sober or like getting clean, right? I mean, to me anyway.
I was going to say, we're about to open up a can of worms right now about the Suboxone sober, all that other thing. We'll leave that for another part. All right. Well, what made you finally say, like, where did it get to? Like, give me the brief rundown before you're like, all right, I got to get sober. I got to do my thing.
So I had gotten let go from my job in October 2016. And then my father-in-law died right around that time, and I was just a shit husband. I started going to a Suboxone doctor that would prescribe me everything, like Xanax, Klonopin, Adderall, gabapentin, Suboxone, everything, right? And I had to sell the rest of that stuff in order to fill my subscript.
Right.
And then once Xanax entered the scene, just everything just got trampolined to the point where I nodded out in the middle of like the busiest part of Boston while driving my brand new car, totaled it, didn't get a Dewey somehow, even though there were probably 180 pills just floating around the front seat of that car. They took it. I called my heroin dealer because I couldn't find my car, and he grew up in the part of town that like it's really in Boston. It's really difficult to find the tow lots. So he's like, well, I'll take you around. I was sitting on his moped, and he was driving me around Brighton, Mass, looking for my car. I got intervened on shortly then thereafter, obviously. Not that I don't think anybody, I don't know, as far as interventions for heroin, like no one's really a social heroin user. Like you kind of know you have a problem.
Were you IV or were you smoking it?
No. I was sniffing it.
Sniffing it. I keep forgetting East Coast has
powder.
that.
Yeah. It's powder out here. Yeah. I found out that it's the Mississippi that is basically the Great Divide in tar and powder.
Really?
Evidently, yeah. I mean, it's cartel, but like I think they draw it up like geography, right? So yeah, essentially, I think that seems to be the cutoff from what I've gathered. But yeah, no, I was mainly sniffing it before I got sober. I was like, you know what? Like I had a week there when I committed to going to rehab, and I was like, you know what? I haven't done meth. Like I haven't I haven't shut up. You know what I mean? So like I did all the things that like I was like, might question in sobriety. You know what I mean? Like being like, I never tried that. Maybe that would be fun, So
And you gotta
yeah.
love it, like, because when people go to treatment, they have their last hurrah, right? And it's not every so often that you hear people go, you know what, I haven't done meth.
Yeah.
Let's give that a try. You know what, IV use never been on the table. I'm about to go to rehab. Fuck it, let's do our thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It certainly didn't make detox any better. The
No, 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 no.
Yeah, yeah. That flight from Boston to Orange County was rough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They
We had a guy that was on the podcast. I think it was last week or a couple weeks ago, and he got arrested on the plane because after doing a bunch of meth, he started screaming, "This plane's going down! This plane's going down!" and having one of those.
Dude, the idea of doing an upper before getting on a plane sounds particularly fucking torturous. Can I swear on this?
Yeah,
Okay,
of
good.
course you can.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, the idea of having unbridled energy while being stuck in an economy seat sounds miserable. I
Next
much
to some
that,
unsuspecting person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're just like, hey, what are you doing? Let's go. You want to take over the plane? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't, whatever. No. I don't know if you noticed this at all, but like when I was in treatment, I noticed that like the downer people kind of stuck with the downer people, and then like
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah, just different vibes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Between
Well, and I
groups.
always wondered why, even when using, why the downer people would hang out with the upper people because, the downers are nodded off and we've got, like I said, projects or shit to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You got skin to like scratch off and shit. Like we just got nap. It's just never ending naps. It's people who were like, "Hey man, you don't look 41." I'm like, I just took a lot of guilt-free midday naps. Like I don't know what to
It's
I don't know what to
well
tell you.
preserved. Yeah.
But that's really the rundown. Like it was really 9 months where it just fell apart, Like it just finally I couldn't keep the wheels on the track anymore. There was no hiding it. Like it was, and I did a pretty good job there for a while. I was failing up in finance. I was married to
Failing
like
up. Lovely.
yeah, yeah, like just all personality, no actual like output, like
Yeah.
it's people are like, "Oh, I like him. Let's give him a promotion." You know what I mean? Like that was I mean, I showed enough whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I was checking all the boxes, married, house, no kids, but which is awesome.
So, quick question for you. So, and I'm sure you heard this in treatment, and I'm sure being in the sober or talking to sober people, it's something that you've came across. And people always like to talk about what made them an addict, why were they the way that they were, and usually when some people say, "Okay, I had the family, I had this, I had that," it begs the clinical question: were there anything in the past that you believe that might have led you to that, or did one thing just lead to another?
I've always been like if it's on the table, I'm gonna do it kind of a thing. To some degree, that was like an attention thing. Like I didn't know, I don't know. For me, it was like a way to make friends. I never felt like I fit in, I think, like with anybody. So I was like, no, yeah, he'll do the crazy thing. You know what I mean? Like, and
Right.
I kind of built I mean, it's kind of lent itself to me doing stand up now, but like I think it was an attention, like popularity thing. But like, as far as getting into heroin specifically, I just liked opiates, man. Like I just liked them. Like I liked the way I felt on them. Like it made doing dumb shit tolerable. I'm a chronic procrastinator and I wouldn't when I was on dope, like at least at the beginning.
Right.
Like it made everything better for like 6 months and then obviously then you're just married to it. But
And then there's
yeah.
after that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like there was a nice honeymoon there where I was like, oh, this is dope. No pun intended. It was actually I got prescribed Percocet for pink eye in college by the team doctor. I was on the swim team
Okay.
at UMass. Throw them on blast. And the doctor in 2002 gave me Percocet for pink eye, and I found out that I really really liked Percocet at that point. I think he gave me 20. Gave me 20 for pink eye.
Pink eye?
For pink eye. No
Man,
bullshit.
is he still there?
No,
Like,
no,
what's his
no,
number?
no.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know this guy. Wow, this is 2002. They were still
Yeah.
going off of OxyContin's not addictive, right?
Yeah,
Like,
he was still running all this
yeah.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the glory days of that. My mom was a dental hygienist, and she like warned me like, hey, don't take Vicodin, don't take Percocet, which made me want to take it that much more.
Because they did it work now.
Yeah. No, not at all. But yeah, I remember. Yeah, that was the weekend. One of my buddies was up for recruiting weekend, and we just we went through all 20 in about 2 days. And I was like, yeah. But then I didn't do them again for another. I mean, off and on, like one would fall like into my lap, but like I wasn't seeking them out. It wasn't until my best friend died when I was like 24, 23, 24. Yeah. We had just started living together. He drove into a house drunk on his way home from like a Christmas party for the restaurant that he was working at. And I moved up to Boston like a couple months later, kind of just didn't deal with it. Ran into somebody at the wrong time from my past that was like, hey, do you want to Dilaudid? And I was like, absolutely. And then it snowballed from there real quick. So that's
now,
like,
in hindsight, do you believe that was a contributing factor, or do you think it was just the perfect storm that, that plus the move, plus the Dilaudid just started everything off?
Yeah, I think it was a perfect storm, honestly. Like, I mean, would I have found my way there? Possibly. But like, I think it was just not dealing with strong emotions, new city, wrong person, thing that I like. You know what I mean? Like, and it all came together very quickly within like a couple months of me moving up there.
Absolutely.
I mean, it runs in my family. My dad was a cokehead. I sold coke with my dad while I was in college.
Gotcha.
So yeah, like it wasn't like I had great like, hey, don't do that, energy coming from my family. But
well, you had one person saying don't take these dental hygienist stuff, and then the other one. So I guess it was the yin and yang of the whole situation.
Yeah. I mean, if my mom had it her way, it probably would have been, she likes to drink, not like that, but like she would much rather have me drink. My dad was always like, I'd much rather have you smoke weed, and then it turned into, yeah. So like all the doors had been broken down as like, well, one says it's okay. You know what I mean? We're getting to like, is it a nature or nurture kind of question here? Like essentially, right? Like, and I think it's always both.
It is. And the challenge here is that I have found, especially trying to be in the social media public recovery space, people are very, very attached to their, call it contributing factors, call it reason, call it why, to where, you talk about how, and this is just my personal opinion, I think the big thing that most clinicians don't understand about drug addiction is the most obvious one of them all. Substances are awesome. Like it really is like a quandary to me why more people aren't loaded and things like that. But then of course people want to look into the why, what was the contributing factor? Was it trauma? Was it family dynamics? Was it this, that, and the other thing? And it gets real messy real quick.
It does. And at the end of the day, you're 100% right. I actually started doing that in my set recently, where I was like, nobody gets addicted to drugs because they fucking suck. Like, they're awesome. You throw in that and then an inability to like quell your impulses, like being like is a huge part of it, I think. I mean, obviously there's the spiritual side of everything that we get into, but like it's which I was for sure lacking in and probably am currently as well. But
well, let's fast forward. So you finally come down to Orange County after all that shit, and you finally say, all right, I'm going to treatment. Stupid yet big question. Did you know what you signed up for when it comes to recovery and getting sober?
Fuck no. No. I mean, well, yeah, I mean, as far as like being sober, I mean, I had an idea it was probably going to suck, like at least at first. But as far as like what treatment was going to be like or what any of it was going to, no idea. Had no clue. I mean, I went up to Lake Arrowhead at first. That's where I detoxed. I was probably there for like, I don't know, 3 weeks, a month or so. Yeah, probably about a month, I think, ish. Yeah. And then I came down the hill down to the Dana Point. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know how long I was going to be there, what I was signing up for. I mean, you're looking at the best version of everything on the website. You know what I mean? Like, you don't realize that there's going to be the one black kid in fucking rehab is going to be roomed with a guy from Arkansas with a swastika tattoo on his chest. Like, like, yeah, you don't realize you're going to be eating cheese basically for, like, it's just, yeah, it was the weirdest thing. Like, rehab was hilarious. Like, for me, like, just to witness. Yeah, just to witness.
Well, and it really is an interesting thing, especially having worked in it eventually down the road, all the things behind the scenes. Because when you talk about the website, when you talk about the horrible rooming situations, which I swear on my life, they don't intentionally plan. It just kind of karmically happens, right?
Yeah.
It is like you show up and it is such a motley crew of people all doing this thing called recovery in whatever the hell that means to them at that time, just figuring shit out.
Yeah, no, it is. And some of them aren't figuring it out. You know what I mean? Like it's, a lot of people are just and to be fair, I went when I was 35, right? So I went a little late in life, like in comparison to most of the people that I was there with. Say the average age was probably 23, 24. I'm assuming that's probably still the case because of insurance.
Yes, sir.
Right. And it was interesting. I definitely got schooled on trap while I was out there. You know, like my music's my like the music. Like I do. You know what? That's one thing I got back in sobriety that like I don't ever hear anybody talk about. I didn't listen to music at all. Like there, really, for like when I was like deep in it, like I just wasn't seeking it out. You know what I mean? And then when I after I got everything out of my system, it became like a major part of my day. Like I always have headphones on now. You know, like it's not a
Interesting.
thing. Yeah, it could be because I'm autistic. I don't know. I just like headphones. No, but yeah, that was one thing that came through. I don't know.
So you showed up to treatment, you did all that, you didn't know quite what you were signing up for. You're with this mishmash of people. Obviously, I'm assuming that life was a train wreck enough to where it was kind of like that was our only option moving forward. So we didn't really have a life raft, I guess.
That's accurate.
At what point did you start buying in or doing the work or moving forward? Choose your terminology.
Honestly, it was probably when I started working with Eric, my sponsor out there. Like it was, I was I was nearing the end of like the full day treatment. Um, and I needed, you know, I obviously like the part of treatment was getting a sponsor, I think, right? Like with our case managers, we had to get one. And like I asked, I forget who I asked, and it ended up working out. Like I was looking for a job at the time as well because I needed one of those get well jobs, like to have a couple bucks while I was out there. And I couldn't get one. I just seemed to like just not be able to get one. And I started working but not having that job allowed me to work the steps with Eric. And that's where I kind of really, you know, really started to like buy in.
What was your view on, because was this your first introduction to 12-step rooms, 12-step culture, steps, all that stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It was
what was your initial impression? Because sometimes people come in and they think it's like a cult where everyone's like Google Gobble one of us, and there's the God issue and all that. What was your feeling about all that?
I feel like it's a heck of a lot less culty on the West Coast than it is on the East Coast. Like I actually didn't have that real gut when I was up on Lake Arrowhead, like when it was just like a bunch of old hippie heads like up there. It definitely felt a little more, you know, drink the Kool-Aid kind of a thing. But like down there, it was really just it. I think age and religion kind of, if it's old and too Christian, like it's gonna kind of give that culty vibe. I feel like to some degree, the younger and more, I don't want to say, you know, let's just say spiritual it is versus like dogma.
Right.
Like then, you know, I think it was my first impression was like, huh, seems like this stuff works for a lot of us, you know, like it's and somebody told me early on, look for the people that have what you want, you know what I mean? Like, and that's sort of where I got with it. Yeah, I mean, I also knew I didn't have a choice, so I needed all the help I could get. Like it wasn't.
And I think it has to do with that age that you're talking about, right? Because I do think that, you know, I got sober at 27, but granted, I started trying to get sober at the age of 14 and was introduced to the rooms back then. So it took me quite a long time to even come around in many different respects. But there is an age component that, you know, when you have these life circumstances that happen and the maturity, obviously the name, I'm not going to say the full name because, you know, anonymity, but 12 step has been around since the 40s, right? So we all know that this is a successful thing, but sometimes people have a hard time with it. You know, there's hand holding sometimes and people say God and they reference these steps that, you know, somebody looks on the wall and is like, I can do those in 5 minutes, and, you know, and then they move on and it can become challenging.
I see that. I just didn't get that. I knew there had to be something that was going to be helpful about it regardless. And it's, and if you have the right people to bring you through them, you know what I mean? Like if you have the right, you know, Eric's talented, you know, like as far as bringing guys through the steps, I think, and finding a way to get through to them. I will say like the God, like the finding a higher power was difficult for me at first. That was the one that I stuck on the most. I don't know. That's probably common, I would assume, for a lot of people. Yeah. Because I grew up Catholic. I don't know if I grew up Catholic. Some shit with a priest at one point happened, you know what I mean? Like, and I kind of wrote him off, you know what I mean? And was very anti-religion, God, you know, very egocentric as far as how I got through life. And I find that that's probably one of the most helpful parts of the 12 steps is the ego death that you can get from it to some degree. Does that track?
Absolutely does. Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, for the people that are listening, the reason why I ask these kind of questions is that obviously there are people that are going to be maybe they're first going to treatment or they don't know anything. And like you said, sometimes your exposure to 12-step culture can be regional to where, you know, it's different wherever you are in the East Coast. But the big issues, generally speaking, that I have encountered have been the God issue, has been the I'll call it culty dogma esque, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
But I agree, and I think that people who do not understand, it's like trying to explain what a rose smells like if you've never smelt a rose. Like I can do my best to explain what that process does to you as a person, but if you've never experienced it, it's hard to put into words.
I mean, I'll give you like this is a good example. Like I had again, it goes back to me looking for my job, from looking for a job out there. I ended up getting one shortly after I finished my fifth step. Right, I would have definitely not had enough to. I mean, we probably spent 20 hours going over my fifth step, over the course of a month. So when I finally did get that job, my wife at the time had asked me for a divorce. I had just gotten off the phone. I walk inside, I look down, and I found a Xanax on the ground at my job. No part of me even thought about taking it. Like no, like in that moment, like that's where, you know what I mean? Like that's what that drug was made for, was the anxiety, you know what I mean? Like something life changing. I was basically having a panic attack, and I just, tossed it in the toilet, like which.
Did it click to you at that time? Like,
Yeah,
holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. There was another moment too where I started to like, and it's not drug related, whatever, but like, when you're in the druggy buggy and you're waiting on the last person to get in the van, everyone's getting angsty and irritated.
He's still in the shower doing
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
And it's always the same dickhead, right? Like, I had an epiphany in the van at one point. I'm like, the fuck do I care? We're going to this, like, I have nothing to do. Like
Right.
I'm sitting here or I'm sitting there. Take as long as you want. You know what I mean? It doesn't, yeah. And that was a moment there I was like, oh, maybe I am changing. So those were the two, like, sort of like, I'd say, light bulby kind of, oh, all right, maybe this stuff does work. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And it's so challenging too, because again, when you try to explain this to people, because obviously like I sponsor people in the rooms, and then I obviously work as a clinician, and the topic of steps comes up, and it's so hard to explain of like, you're going to do these things, they're going to make no intellectual sense of how they're going to fix your problem, and all of a sudden weird shit's going to happen that you're going to go, how the hell did I get here? And it's going to be awesome. And it's hard to explain how that process mechanically works.
I mean, you kind of can't. You just have to trust that it does, and that's probably the tough part for a lot of people. I do see so many people just drag out doing their steps. It's not like it's the only time. Like, you can do them again. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. Yeah, it's like I see people take years. It's amazing. I don't know. I didn't have that much time. I also knew I had to. Like, I wanted to get them done before I left California. Like that's. But yeah, I mean, your fifth steps like doing 2 years of therapy, in my opinion.
No, it is.
Your fourth and fifth, and and ninth and tenth. But like, or eight. Right
now, were you one of the people for your fourth step that you hated everybody, or you hated nobody?
Oh, I hate everybody. I still do. I still do. But if we bring it like that, that's where like comedy kind of screws up my spirituality a little bit, because I find that it's those first thoughts that like you don't say, and you're like, no, bad thoughts, but with comedy, those are usually where the jokes come from, so I have to dwell on them. You know what I mean? Like I have to, and yeah. So like it's, I still see stuff. Like I saw a girl today, and they, I was delivering this house must have been worth $3 million that I was delivering to, and their daughter had just graduated high school, and on the back of her van it had her Venmo. And I'm just like, really? Like, really? I'm gonna request $5 is what I'm gonna do. Like that's. So like it's stuff like that like will have me fired up for like 45 minutes when it absolutely should not. But yeah, that's
going to the grocery store. It's like, would you like to donate to the poor? It's like, I'm right here.
Yeah. No, that's 100% true.
No, I get it. So I know you've mentioned comedy a few times. Obviously, you're a comic at this time. Obviously, you're a delivery driver on the side, things of that nature. Was you becoming a comic something you ever aspired to be, or did you just kind of fall into it?
100%. When I was in my early 20s, I referenced my best friend back in the 20s. Yeah, he was a theater guy at Providence College. Was in an improv group. They invited me to join, so I did improv for like 8 months. Realized these aren't my people. Yeah, it just not. But either way, like I got exposed to it there. He was doing stand up. I was writing jokes for him. At the time, I had really bad stage fright, and so I never thought I could do it. I always wanted to, but I didn't think I could. And then at meetings, I started speaking at the mic a lot more, going on commitments, yada yada yada. So I started getting a little more comfortable in front of the mic. And then, as it turns out, I was thinking about quitting my job because I was doing really badly at it. And they asked me, they're like, "Do you want it?" And I was like, like maybe, kind of. Found out, like, they were like, "Why don't you take the weekend to think about it?" Went to my home group on Sunday. Found out that my East Coast sponsor here told me that there was a guy in our group that was a comic, and I was like, he brought me to my first open mic and kind of just went from there. It's found out that I had some skill at it, and it's kind of become my obsession. Like, post, like, I swam through college. That was sort of my thing. Then it became drugs, and now it's comedy. That's my third chapter.
Interesting. So one of the things, and you may or may not have heard this when you were in treatment, or maybe you have in other circles, but I know that when people first get sober, cliche that people say is like, "Oh, you have to find your passion, or you have to find your why, or a meaning, or whatever it is." And I feel like the mistake that people always do is they always say, "Okay, I'm in like comedy. Like, comedy is going to be my why. That's why I'm going to stay sober. That's going to keep me sober."
Yeah, no, I didn't think of comedy as like the thing that was going to keep me sober. I just knew it was my purpose. Like, I realized it's the thing that I needed to be doing for me. Like, just because I think it's something that I have talent in. You know what I mean? It's the thing that I'm happiest doing. Granted, it's for like 7 minutes at a time. There's a lot left to the rest of the day. You know what I mean? During the week, usually. So yeah, I'm gonna find other things that keep me sober. But like, that's sort of my, I would say it has become my purpose. I didn't necessarily look for it, though. It presented itself to me. Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely. And it's an important distinction because I think people are always trying to shortcut the recovery process, right? Is that people, in meetings, they kind of call them like the cash and prizes, whatever it is. Like, people who get sober find their passion, direction, whatever, like, things start to click. But people always try to skip the step of like, you got to do the internal work, you got to get well, you got to get sober and do your work. And then it announces itself to you. You don't find it. And then you then do the work.
It was probably because I've been doing comedy for about 5 years now. I started in the middle of COVID. So like, I was I was a little over I was probably 2.5 years sober before I started doing comedy. So yeah, I had a solid two and a half of just, meetings and simple life. You know what I mean? Like, that was the bread and butter at that point. It was just meetings, keep it simple, like, as far as life goes, for as long as you can. Because now it's very complex. It's but I would agree with you as far as that goes. Yeah.
When we were speaking on the phone, you mentioned something to the effect of that the comedy world is very similar to the recovery world, if I remember correctly. Tell me a little bit more about that.
We all know what the 13th step is, right? Do you want to?
Yeah, well, for those who might not know what it is, it's a very unhealthy practice where people who have gone through the 12 steps then try sleeping with somebody who's going through step 1. Ergo 13.
The comedy world is like 90% dudes and like 10% women. So like, it's usually, so yeah, you'll see a lot of established male comics hitting on girls who've been doing comedy for about 2 months. You know what I mean? Like, being like, "Hey, you want to get booked? Sleep with," you know what I mean? Like, that kind of a thing. So like, there's a very similar aspect, like the sex aspect of it is interesting, but also you just see people, they kind of treat it like a hobby, so they're in and out, like, they're in and out. Same thing with, you see a lot of that in the rooms as well, right? Like, a lot of people are like, they're big into it for like a couple months, and then you don't see them for a year. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a lot to that as well. You throw on
has the same amount of carnage happen when they come back in between the last time, because when they come and leave the rooms, it's like, oh yeah, here's all the horrible shit that happened since I've been gone.
Yeah, they'll let that go in their sets for sure, but they haven't progressed, so they kind of suck usually. That's a whole different thing. Well, actually, no, I guess you could kind of. You haven't progressed spiritually. You haven't progressed like in sobriety, like in your sober life. Usually, if you're jumping in and out of the room, so it's kind of similar. You're retarding your progress by doing that, obviously. But there's so many things with we're all mentally unwell. There's so few of us that have something that they're been diagnosed with, whether it's autism, ADD, BPD, all the big ones. And we're just as accepting.
All right. So good old technical difficulties, always making things fun. I have no idea where we left off at.
Yeah.
So let's just get back to, so obviously, comic comparisons between the comedy world,
Is
sober world, things of
yeah.
that nature. How the hell do you stay sober being a comic and in that type of environment where I can only imagine shit gets weird?
Yeah, no, shit does get weird, but like there's actually, again, one of the parallels is that there are a lot of sober people in comedy. A lot of people got real fucked up in their 20s and then started going to meet. Like a lot of them go to meetings, some don't. I've actually brought a few people to meetings that need, they're like they were interested, and I was like, if you want to go, I'll totally take you. So like there's like just meetings that like how like just two sober people talking turns into a meeting, right? Like that's what we like, the meeting outside the meeting. There's a lot of that, for one. Two, alcohol is a thing that's constantly there.
Right.
But like that was never like, honestly, like I know October 20th 2017 was my sober date, but like I have no idea when the last time I had a drink was. Like it's well before that, you know what I mean? So there's no heroin bars, you know what I mean? Like
No, they're not.
yeah, no. So like it's that, as far as comedy goes and staying sober, that's less of a concern. But like where I live is a different, like I live like essentially across the street from Boston's Skid Row, if that tracks.
Gotcha.
Yeah, some of them actually I live on the 29th floor looking down at the Boston Crack Exchange. Like yeah, I've had people ask me for drugs, like knock on my door at 2 a.m. Like it's a thing. But like I also see these people and I'm like, I want nothing to do with that life. Like it's more like that's what my life could be if I ever slipped. You know what I mean? Yeah, that was one reason why like it was a one and done for me, was like I just knew that, like if I don't have a relapse in me. I don't have another one. Like not
You
another
think you'll
one.
just go right back to where you were and worse and probably wind up with the people that you see all the time?
Yeah, probably. In all seriousness, yeah, probably. I mean, I don't think I'd be a very good homeless person, but just in general, like I like air conditioning too much.
I get it.
But yeah, no, I'm relatively, like people are like some of my best friends be like, dude, why can't you have a drink? Like that wasn't your thing. It's like, no, well, yeah, it wasn't my thing, but you know as well as I do, if I have a few drinks, I'm going to be looking for some Coke pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
And then once you add that into the equation, I just become a full-on hedonist. It's like, where are the hookers? Like if I, like, maybe it just becomes just, I want everything that I can that makes me feel good. Right.
But once that thing turns on, right? It's like once we get that taste, it's like there's that's what makes us a addict, alcoholic, right? Is that there is no mild switch. Like we don't kind of turn it on. Like it gets cranked all the way to 11 as soon as we get a taste.
Yeah, no, and 100%. I mean, the way I've seen that now, the toughest part, to be honest with you, I'd say women have been my toughest issue in sobriety.
Okay.
The women will fuck me up more than anything else, as far as not necessarily using or anything, but like just that crank it to 11 real quick. You know what I mean? Like very, very early on, to where it's just all of a sudden now I'm in like a balls deep relationship that I didn't know was about to happen.
I was going to ask you, is it relationships or is it casual sex? Because sometimes those are.
It's been relationships, some of the other as well. There's an ex-girlfriend, if she hears this, is not going to love that, but like is what it is at this point. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's definitely, I'd say I'm glad I stayed away that first year. You know what I mean? Like I'll say that. I'm glad I just concentrated on getting healthy for that first year and a half. For sure, before I entertained the idea of dating.
Now, going back to what you're talking about with where you live, right? Do you attribute your ability to, I don't want to say remain objective, but like you're able to sit there and go, wow, that's really crazy that somebody's knocking on my door at 2 o'clock in the morning asking for crack. I sure as hell wouldn't want to be one of those people. And I'm glad I'm sober. From the outside listening in, if you are just getting sober or don't know how to stay sober or doing any of those things, it sounds like that, you got to avoid people, places, and things. And how the hell can you stay sober if you still have this knocking on your door?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a girl that I was seeing when I first moved up here was like, you need to move immediately. And I was like, no, and I actually called Eric. I was like, did I fuck up? And he's like, no, I think you're uniquely qualified to handle this situation. And I agreed with him. Like I wouldn't have done this. Like I knew where I was moving. You know what I mean? Like I knew that chaos was right outside the door. But I think I got a really solid base in sobriety, like at the beginning, especially that first 6 months when I was out in California, that like really carried forward. And I have a solid group of people to talk to. Dude, if I had a drink at a show or whatever, like if somebody saw me with a beer in my hand, they'd slap it out at this point. I've got like my good friends would probably punch me. You know what I mean? Everyone knows that I'm sober. Like that's one thing telling people. Like don't try to hide it. If you're trying to maybe not tell somebody that you had a problem because you're embarrassed or whatever, but like no, get that fucking information out there so that you don't give yourself any sort of out or corner to cut or whatever.
It's definitely great advice. I mean, because I do think that just like when we talk about from a steps perspective, what's the expression? You're only as sick as your secrets. But I do think that when it comes to the recovery aspect of things, there is that degree of like, yeah, tell people what you're doing because the people in your life need to know. Like, I get it. Sometimes people's life situations, maybe they're sitting there going, I can't really shout this from the rooftops because of a job or whatever else. But like someone has to know what's going on with you.
Yeah. I mean, also, from a job perspective, if I was looking for a job right now, there's no way that if they have any sort of self-respecting HR department that they're not going to find stuff that, you know what I mean? So like between AI and the searching and like the amount of money behind HR, you're not going to hide it. You'd have to be very skilled in wiping the internet in order to probably do that. Luckily, I never had any sort of like actual, like I don't have any sort of record, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I tell people that's, that's 100, like maybe not in the first date if you're dating, maybe not in that first
don't lead with that, right?
Yeah, maybe don't lead with that forward. Like, hey, why aren't you drinking? I don't know, like because I had a major fucking drug problem. But you're gonna want to tell people, or like you want to be honest about it. My opinion. What is it? Radical? What's the phrase? The terminology? Radical candor? No, being honest to the point.
Rigorous honesty.
Yeah, rigorous honesty. Thank you. Yeah. That's definitely one that I've tried to live by. I know Bill gave himself some outs there, but the as far as fidelity goes. But
right, yeah. Bill was definitely not the stand-up guy when it came to relationships, fidelity, things of that nature.
But yeah, no, that's I'd say that's been a big thing for me. Just everyone knowing gives me a greater support base, even if some of my friends have been skeptical of my not being able to drink. This was a fun one. There's a national headliner comic, right? And his opener on the road goes with him everywhere on the road. Was up at a club here. This national headlining comic moved to Rhode Island recently, randomly. Anybody who's watching this can probably figure it out if they really want to. Yeah, but his opener saw me, heard my set, and then asked me to get him Coke.
No shit.
Yeah, but in like initially, and I'm sure you I'm thinking you'll be able to identify with this. Like, I wanted to see if I could still be that resourceful drug addict.
Sure.
Yeah, I was like,
I still got it.
Right. Like, I have no connections, nothing whatsoever. I wonder how quickly I could get it. You know what I mean? I didn't do it, but I thought real hard about it for a half a second. I just kind of want to prove to myself that I could if I wanted to. You know what I mean?
Well, there's an identity component. It's like old decrepit Tom Brady, right? It's like in 20 years, someone's gonna ask him. It's like, hey, do you think you could still run X? I'm not a sports guy. X, Y, and Z play, and there's gonna be that part of his brain. It's like, could I still run it? I think I could.
Yeah, I think I could. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's 100% what it was. But it's funny. I ran into that kid, and he had DM'd me another time asking me if I could, and I just left him on red. And he mentioned that, and we were both on the same show last Friday, and he mentioned it in his set. He was like, because I guess he's like 6 weeks sober. He looked 6 weeks sober too.
Yeah.
Like he was a mess. He mentioned it on stage. But so it's kind of funny. I actually offered to bring him to a meeting, and he just ran out the door. So
yeah,
who knows? But
for him being 6 weeks sober, did that make him more or less funny on his set?
Way less funny.
Of course.
People that like do drink and drink heavy and then try to do stand up again sober, I feel for them because you know what I mean? Like they've used that as their crutch to get over, to be natural and present. Like the whole thing with stand up is trying to present it like these are thoughts that are just coming off the top of my head, right? Like it's just free flowing. I didn't write these. They're not jokes. It's just funny shit.
Exactly.
And that's difficult to do when you're sober for somebody who doesn't, for somebody who hasn't done it sober for a long time.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure there's inflection and you, I mean, I don't know if acting is the right way to put it, but like you're acting like these are coming off the top of your head when you're reading jokes that were prepared beforehand. So there is like an acting component that I'm sure being loaded, if that's your thing, helps you get into character, I guess.
Yeah, it makes it come across way more conversationally, I think, for a lot of people. I do feel for those guys though, because it's got to be difficult. I'm glad I do that sober. You know what? I am glad I got married still fucked up though. Like that's
Wait. Why?
just for the party aspect of it. If you're gonna drop
Yeah.
50, 60 grand on a one nighter, like yeah, that's, I'm not gonna lie. Like at that time, I was, I could still dance. Like that's I cannot dance sober. I can't do it in front of people.
Could you even dance when you were loaded, or you
I
just not
could.
give a shit?
I used to break dance in high school back in the day.
No shit. Okay.
Yeah. You wouldn't know. Yeah, back in the 90s.
Oh, back in the 90s.
Yeah, back in the 90s. Yeah, but yeah, now no. I tore my meniscus popping and locking while doing dishes in the kitchen.
That's the most old person shit I've ever heard.
Right? Is that not like? Yeah. No, that's like oh, you're 40. Okay, I get it. Yeah. Yeah. That's how you tell people. I fuck with the homeless people too. Like they're kind of my people at the same time as like not my people.
Right.
It's an everyday reminder of like what life could be if I fuck up. So that's how I look at where I live. It's affordable. It's not necessarily Section 8. It's affordable housing, and in Boston, that still means $2,000 a month for a studio. You know what I mean? Like
right.
That's yeah. So as affordable as that is, on FedEx and Comedy Money, but yeah. Actually started seeing a sober girl recently for the first time. Never dated a sober girl ever. So
what's that been like for you?
It's interesting because she works in treatment. So like she's still like in it, like I'm kind of like you are, you know what I mean? But she's still, she's still going to like 4 or 5 meetings a week, and then also obviously works in treatment. So it's interesting. It's like almost like I remember that life. Not that I ever worked in treatment, but like I remember what that was like for what it was like for people that did.
Much time does she have?
2.5.
Okay. So she's not new. She's got a couple years under her belt.
Yeah. She's got some time, I remember thinking 2.5 was like when I was 3 months in, like 2.5, you know what I mean?
Oh, I know.
That's probably about where, like, what do you have now?
I'm coming up on 9.
So yeah, that's about, you were like a year and a half too when I first got out there. It makes me feel a little more connected to things. She takes things so seriously with sobriety that like, is it like I haven't thought about things that seriously in a long time. Not that I don't, but like just like it's just a very black and white. She goes to different organizations. Let's say that.
What do you think it is that is it the God thing that you feel like you got connected to and that was sufficient? So therefore, now that you're kind of removed, you're just chilling, whereas she's very deep in it? Or what do you think the difference is between you two?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always wondered that, like with people that like kind of live in the rooms, you know what I mean, to some degree. Like I didn't think like, oh, I'm gonna get sober so I can stay in these rooms. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to be able to live a life outside of whatever meetings I was going. It wasn't going to be like I'm going to a morning meeting and a night meeting every day, and that's what keeps me. No, that's what's keeping you sober. You still got some work to do, I feel like, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, but like I think meditation helped me a lot. I pray, but like not to the. I think somebody put it like if you're talking, you're not listening. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Praying is talking to God.
Yeah.
Meditating is listening. Yeah.
So I've kind of more tried to. I talk enough. Like I try to lean into the listening as much as I can. But yeah, no, like I said, I think I just got such a good foundational base, and I know myself much better than I used to, that it's just lent itself to not needing to be in the rooms in order to stay sober.
Girl's age, are you guys similar in age?
No, well, it depends on what you describe as similar. She's 32.
32. So within what, 10 years?
Yeah, within 10 years, yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah,
She's not like late 20s or anything.
I mean, that maturity-wise, I'm probably right there anyway. Met her at a show. Like some sober folks came out to a show. They liked me, came to another show, and yeah, that's how that happened. It's nice to be kind of like loosely, tangentially connected to the community again. Yeah.
Do you feel like it's something that like is kind of needed?
It's funny. I was having a moment like in my car before going into the gym, just having a crap day, and some monks walked up to me and handed me the what do you call it, the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. Just they were like, you look like you're having a rough one. You want this book? And I was like, So that's sort of my higher power at work, like in my
Gotcha.
feeling. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's been times where like I probably needed a meeting, and they found me. Like is what it seems like. That's a huge part of it, is having a good fellowship. You know, like
Absolutely.
did you go to Joshua Tree and do all those trips?
No, I never went into Joshua Tree or did any of that. I had a fellowship, but I didn't like the functions. I didn't like the retreats. Like, no, thank you. I I hated people when I first got sober.
Yeah.
So it was a big step for me just to say, like, hey, you guys are all right. But there's still, even in sobriety, has been that line where it's like, I love you guys. I don't fucking love you that much. I'm not going to the retreats.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, for me in treatment, like getting out of Dodge for a weekend and going to like camp and in Joshua Tree, and I mean, granted, myself and like four other people just ended up at a casino for like half of it, but yeah,
Place where they say we're not supposed to go.
yeah, are we not supposed to go to casinos?
I don't know. Look, people blazing things, barbershop haircut, there's certain, I
Yeah,
guess if alcohol is not quite your cup of tea, but,
yeah. Well, I mean, well, gambling can lend itself to it as well. But either way, I get to use a bathroom that was indoors and not in a bucket in the desert. Oh, but yeah, those types of things were huge though for me anyway. Like back then. I mean, I wasn't going to sober dances or anything, as we haven't. Yeah,
I
but
did do one of those early on and never fucking again.
yeah. No, fuck. I saw one and I was like, no, I'm good. Yeah. No. This does not make sense to me. But yeah, when I first got back, like I had to move in with my mom, and I was in Rhode Island. The fellowshipping, like there were like four of us under the age of 70
Yeah.
in the rooms, right? Up here is a little different though. In Boston, it's a little different, much larger pool of folks.
All right, so leave us off with I guess you would say your prescription rules, advice, whatever it is, people who are maybe considering getting sober.
That's such a loaded question.
I know it is.
Yeah, I know you know it is. The well, first of all, just fucking do it.
It's Nike. Do it.
Yeah, just stop thinking, just do it. But you're gonna talk yourself out of it. We're all very skilled at that. And then when you do it, commit to it. Commit to it the same way you did your drugs, right? It's not gonna be all roses, but at the same time, it's a hell of a lot better. Find somebody that has what you want, like in the sober world, this has worked out for me both there and here. And listen to them. For me, meditation was again, like as I discussed, meditation became a huge thing for me. Find your higher power if you can. Let your ego die. You don't always have to be right. That's something that's a mantra for myself. It's better to be kind than to be correct. You know what I mean? Recognize when you're acting out of fear. Like that's where meditation has really helped me, is recognizing the moments where in the interactions I've had where it was completely a fear reaction.
And so often you fear, but it's masked as something else, right? We tell ourselves all these narratives, but if you actually sit and look at it, it is the fact that we're afraid.
Yeah, exactly. What do you have to lose? Like, you just put yourself aside for a second and just let somebody else drive.
Fuck yeah, Glenn. Appreciate it, bud.
No, I appreciate your time, Brian. Thank you.
Absolutely.